Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. On the second day of Eid al-Azha in Pakistan, the government in the country reached a staff-level agreement with the International Monetary Fund for a $3 billion standby arrangement. IMF team lead Mr. Nathan Porter issued a statement after the meeting with the government authorities in Pakistan. Let me quote what he had to say. I am pleased to announce that the IMF team has reached a staff-level agreement with the Pakistani authorities on a 9-month standby arrangement in the amount of about $3 billion. The new SBA would provide a policy anchor and a framework for financial support from multilateral and bilateral partners in the period ahead. The authorities have already taken a series of important actions ahead of the new program, unquote. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, after the agreement, said it will enable Pakistan to achieve economic stability, expressing the hope at the same time that this new program will be the last one with the IMF. Also, we have seen a business community has expressed the hope that uncertainty will end after this particular deal between government authorities in Pakistan as well as the International Monetary Fund. Today, in two major developments, the Pakistan Stock Exchange rallied today with KSE 100 index witnessing a rise of over 2,400 points, closing at a 14-month high. Also, we have seen that rupee appreciated 5 rupees against the greenback. Such major developments will be taking up for discussion in today's program. For that, we are honored to have been joined in the studio by Mr. Saqib Rafiq. He is President of Rawalpindi Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Mr. Saqib, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Also in the studio, we are honored to have been joined by Mr. Faheem Sardar. He is Senior Policy Specialist at Strategic Policy Planning Cell, National Security Division. Mr. Sardar, thank you very much for your time also, for being with us on Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. Also on the phone line, we'll be joined by Mr. Farrukh Hussain Khan. He is Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director of Pakistan Stock Exchange. We'll be talking to him as soon as he joins us. Let me begin the discussion with you, Mr. Saqib. Quite a respite for Pakistan's economy, the signing of this staff-level agreement between IMF and the government authorities in Pakistan.
Yes, indeed, it was a very long-awaited and a much-needed agreement, which Pakistan has been looking for. And let me tell you, the business community is much relieved. We now see some positivity, we now see some light at the end of the tunnel, and we are very much hopeful. And let me, using the platform of this channel, congratulate the Prime Minister, Mr. Shehbaz Sharif, for putting his untiring efforts throughout. He was meeting the IMF head for the multiple times. There were several phone calls, and whatever efforts he put in, it ended up into some good news for Pakistan. Yes, the IMF agreement this time was very much highlighted. Now, every person in Pakistan, whether you go to some street level shop or whether you are sitting in some high-tech companies meetup, everybody was discussing IMF. And you can see the results today. It's the first working day after the Eid holidays, and we see a decline in the rupee to dollar exchange rate, and there is a decline in the gold rate. And now the investors are gaining confidence, and there is a good vibes, the positive vibes and the good vibes that now that things will get better for Pakistan. This is what the business community was looking for. And after 14 months, the stock market went very high today. It was a very positive. We expected it the day it got announced that now the stock market will be like performing very good. And these all indicators ultimately get the benefit to the business community and to the investors of Pakistan. We can see that this IMF package is not the only solution for the Pakistan economy. We must rely now very aggressively on increasing our exports, because till now we have been relying on the remittances only and not putting up some constant policy or like long-term policy with a political will for improving the industrialization of the country. So this is the right time now. The government must look into it. As you have known, there was recently an investment council has been established. What was the reason behind this? So the investors' confidence should be gained. There is now protection for the incoming investors, and we are now asking the government to provide the facility and the security to existing investors as well. So all these things in the last 2 weeks, you can say, or 10 days, are putting up a green signal everywhere, a cooling sign after a much heated period of a very long time. And now we can see that once Pakistan is economical stable, there will be like political stability as well, and like we'll be prospering. Once again, we'll be back on the track.
Right. Mr. Faheem Sardar, how do you see this particular development? Quite a respite for Pakistan's economy. As Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif said, it provides breathing space for Pakistani economy to recover.
The government has worked very hard to come this far with IMF, and the government has had on its agenda building up Pakistan's economy yet again from where things sort of stopped or paused, so to speak. We have to bear in mind that the IMF of today is not the IMF of the early 2000s and the IMF of the 1990s. This is the IMF which has looked at Pakistan with a microscope. They would just soften up many of the terms earlier on in the earlier decades, but this time it was not soft at all. It was hard in an exemplary manner. So this is a good opportunity for Pakistan to have come this far to basically retool the economy. That as the Prime Minister has said very rightly so, that this is a breathing space. So we use this breathing space and we use this opportunity to retool our economy, because we have the capacity to increase our exports easily by $15 to $20 billion. We just have to dig into the problems. I've been involved in this project before, so I know the niceties of these issues. So we have to rely on revenue generation. And this is a good opportunity for us to basically use this IMF facility. And we should also look at what they're saying. We should look at their advice as well, because some of their advice is not bad actually. It's good for us. We can help increase our revenues. We can stabilize our rupee. We can make sure that we don't get into capital loss. The stock market has moved up. And since I've spent a large part of my career in the investments industry, the stock market is at times a barometer of the economy, but it's also an indicator of expectations. So we can see that the stock market was positive, but because of various reasons. Firstly, the deal went through. Secondly, there was pent-up demand. But we have to, at the same time, throw some caution to the wind, because the largest volume producers of the stock market were small, low-valued shares, which are usually in the second and third tier.
Right. Your point is well taken. We're honored to have been joined by another participant in the show, Mr. Farrukh Hussain Khan. He's CEO and MD Pakistan Stock Exchange. Mr. Farrukh, thank you very much for taking time out for views on news tonight. We really appreciate that. The Pakistan Stock Exchange rally today with KSE 100 index rising over 2,440 points. Now it is a 14-month high. Do you associate this particular rise in KSE 100 index to a 14-month high today solely to the agreement which has been reached between Pakistani authorities and the IMF? Mr. Farrukh, can you hear me, please?
Hello, can you hear me?
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on your program. Sorry, I missed the last closing of the comments. But yes, we've had a record day, mashallah, at PSX. I believe it's the single largest increase ever. And I think a number of reasons for that that have come together. First, as everyone has been mentioning, the IMF deal that has taken place. Actually, because the size of the the last reviews that were left were close to around just over 2 billion, and the ninth review was going to release about 1 billion, and this is a 3 billion deal. And I think the more important thing that the quantum is that it takes us safely over the interim government and the election period into the election of the new government, where the new government will have 5 years and then, to properly negotiate a new IMF program that will need to be undertaken and then have the time to implement it properly. Hopefully, I hope, inshallah, for the last time. So I think that was a big surprise on the upside, both the size and the time that it takes us through a very uncertain, obviously, political period. I think the other 2-3 points that are really important to appreciate is the market obviously was at very low levels, at very attractive valuations. So investors were looking for some good news to come in. There is ample local liquidity, which is good. There is tremendous domestic liquidity available for investment opportunities. And lastly, as we've seen that despite the difficult economic circumstances, the company results have continued to be good. I think a combination of those does provide a base on the market, and hopefully the market will continue to be moving upwards or stay stable.
Right, Mr. Farrukh, we have seen in the last 3 sessions the KSU 100 index increased by 3,834 points. That was an increase of 9.57%. Do you see this particular trend continuing in the coming days also, especially after the agreement reached between Pakistan and the IMF?
Yes. As I said that, apart from the IMF agreement, there are those other factors as well that are supporting the market. So I think, markets do go up and down. There may be a little bit of profit taking, but I think now we've, established a base. So I feel that the market will, it's not for me to predict the direction of the market, but I feel that, the market has established a base. Obviously the political, and we have to see the exact IMF conditionalities that come through. And as I think, as the previous speaker was saying, number of things that they're saying are important and they're good for the long-term health of Pakistan's economy. So, inshallah, I hope the government will focus on them, including, expanding the tax base and undertaking other structural reforms. Some of the areas like on SOEs, the government already seems to be taking some steps. But obviously, with elections coming up, it's not, going to be unexpected that the pace will slow down till the new government is in place. But this IMF deal takes us over this uncertain period, and I think that is what is really important in this.
Right, Mr. Farrukh, we have also seen the State Bank of Pakistan also removing the import restrictions. Do you think it's also going to have a positive impact in the very near term?
Yes, and we've seen today that the auto companies have moved up, quite nicely because of that. Because they obviously are reliant on imports in their supply chain, and because of that, they've had to close down. Yes, that is going to be a positive. But at the same time, the interest rates are also high to support the rupee, because the opportunity cost of holding dollars is now 21-22%. It's a balancing act that I'm sure the central bank and the Ministry of Finance will be doing. But obviously, that is also one of the conditionalities of the IMF, that we should not have the exchange rate supported by import restrictions, so that the true value of the exchange rate gets established.
Right, as you mentioned now, we have also seen appreciation of rupee's value against the greenback today, almost considerable, a phenomenal increase in the value of rupee today after this particular agreement. Now, do you see this particular trend also sustainable in the coming days? And how do you relate this one? What's your understanding of its correlation with the Pakistan Stock Exchange, how they are going to work in tandem?
Look, I think we obviously still have an import-export imbalance, but I think with the difference between the open market rate and the official rate, having collapsed and come back to more normal levels, we will hopefully see more inflows from remittances coming through the official channels, rather than through the informal channels. So that would be good. And I think as we've seen the dollar bonds, Pakistan Sukuks and bonds also rally quite sharply. So we may hopefully see some inflows into portfolio investment, both in equity as well as local bonds, because the local interest rates are very high. And I think with the devaluation risk having lessened, there will be interest from fixed income investors to come in as well. So as I said, and plus, this IMF deal obviously was important not just on its own, but also because a number of multilateral and bilateral flows were held up because of this. So those will also, help in stabilizing the rupee. So I think in the near term, we should see stability in our exchange rate. And in the more medium to longer term, obviously, it will depend on the new government coming in and, continuing to carrying out the structural reforms that are agreed with the IMF.
Right, Mr. Farrukh Hussain Khan, CEO, MD, Pakistan Stock Exchange, joining us on the phone line. Thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. Mr. Saqib, now, this particular agreement of $3 billion, a lot had been talked about earlier when the previous program was stalled for since November. There was expectation of release of tranche of $1.1 billion after the 9th review. Do you think this particular arrangement which has been reached is better than the previous one?
Yes, definitely.
Or was better than the expectations?
Yes, it is better than the previous one, and more importantly, it is better than the expectations that the government was having with it. But let me continue what my fellow was saying, and I must agree that what IMF has been telling us to keep our house in order is very much important right now. This $3 billion is better than expectation. This $3 billion is better than $1.1 billion. And this $3 billion is more than what we were expecting. What's next now? Are we going to be looking for IMF in next year as well? Are we going to have a tough 2024? Are we going to stay the same in the 2023? What happens after the elections? We have to see and improve our tax net as well. This is a very, very long demand from the business community, and as a representative of Rawalpindi Chamber of Commerce Industries, the president, and being a part of the business community, we are urging the government to increase the tax net.
There was a revision in this federal budget for 2023 and 24. Already there was a target set for FBR around $9.2 trillion. That was increased to 9.415 trillion rupees. So that measure is pretty much in that direction.
Still we can do much better. There are many.
So what are the avenues? What would be your suggestion?
We have to make every income taxable. We have to go for the non-conventional sectors where there are tax evasion happening. We have to put smuggling on stop.
Could you identify those sectors, non-conventional sectors that you've just mentioned?
Yeah, once we increase the exports, like so far we have been relying on the export sector for a tax net, and there are many the SME sectors, the retail sectors where the tax is not being paid regularly, and there are so many retail markets, there are so many other areas of the country where we have to work and where we have to see that these tax evasion must not happen. Let me tell you, if we calculate our overall economy, the grey economy, which with the undocumented economy, is very much over there. The smuggling is over there. On the first, we have to put the smuggling to end. Let bring everything with Pakistan through the authorized channel, through the green channels. And once we document all the economy, once we put our house in order, once this the undocumented economy comes a part of the documented economy, we'll be very much be in a good position on our income, because right now the income is very much low as compared to our expenditures. On the other hand, we have to cut down our expenditures as well. In your last program, I mentioned this thing, and now again, I'm because
there is a measure in the revised budget also. The government plans to reduce the running expenditure by 85 billion rupees.
Yeah, but we can do more as well, and we must be going for the privatization of the loss-bearing state-owned enterprises. We must get rid of them. There are a huge expenditure, there are a huge burden on the government budget. They must be privatized, they must be given to the privately owned companies so that they can perform better as well. And the amount that we are paying for those state-owned enterprises in loss, we can utilize it somewhere else.
So I'll take your detailed view regarding how to improve the governance in the state-owned enterprises. We've seen the government authorities repeatedly speaking about this particular issue also, and also privatization of the state-owned enterprise. Mr. Faheem Sardar, better than the expected, what was being expected, this particular arrangement between IMF and the authorities?
Yes, it is better than expected, and there is a ratio that we need to focus on. When you get $1 from IMF as a loan, I want to stress that point, it's a loan, it's not a grant. You can actually get around about $2 to $3 from other financial institutions. So it's like a 1:2 or 1:3, the ratio that we are trying to build here. That's why IMF is so important. You get that letter of comfort. You're basically going for that letter of comfort. Having said that, it is extremely important for us to focus on what we can do to fix our economy so that we start generating revenue instead of focusing on a loan-based system. Even the Prime Minister has hinted towards this. This is a breathing space, as I mentioned, reiterated earlier. The bottom line is that Pakistan's economy, domestically and internationally, they have to be analyzed separately. Pakistan's economy, we've had a currency crunch for the past more than 12 months. It's not been a rupee crunch, it's been a currency crunch. So when you have a currency crunch, it's a different ball game. You have to export something to earn foreign currency, or either go into barter where you're feeling any kind of financial pressure. Having said that, Pakistan has the potential. That's not the problem. We just need to sit back, and I use the word retool. We need to retool our economy, and we did this before. We took on board the private sector. I'm speaking from the government's perspective. We took their views, and we basically started to push up exports. So the private sector is a partner in this whole process. The government is the facilitator and the supra structure. Having said that, we must use this opportunity. It's a very good opportunity. If we can get 3 billion, which is higher than expected from IMF, we can perhaps, the collective funding that we need right now is close to 9 billion. So we can now we're going to talk to the Asian Development Bank, we're going to talk to AIIB, we're going to talk to the Islamic Development Bank again. So I'm looking at it from a slightly macro perspective, that this is a good sign. There are going to be very strict conditions, very strict reviews. So we should use this as an opportunity to streamline our systems internally and to focus on revenue generation.
Right. Your understanding of the measures which have been taken in the revised budget of the next fiscal year 2023 and 24, already it was set at 9.2 for FBR, increased to 9.415. Your understanding of it?
The FBR has done a pretty good job in raising tax, but we have to bear in mind that I'm not saying anything new. I'm actually repeating what many have said many times. Tax is being collected from the same people, same entities. We need to sort of expand our net so that eventually we reduce the tax rate, but we increase the tax amount collected. If we have officially 4 million taxpayers in a country that's the 5th largest country on earth, so that sort of doesn't make sense. We should have around about minimum, 20 million taxpayers. I mean, even 25 million taxpayers, 10% of our population is not enough. So, we have to figure something out. We need to simplify the tax system. My expertise is in finance and governance, but when I open the tax portal, even sometimes I get confused. And taxation is not a simple process. Taxation is complex throughout the world. So let's give FBR a hand. They've done a good job, but at the same time, let's use this opportunity. If FBR can collect 9 to 9.5 trillion rupees in taxes, I want to take us back 15 years, 18 years. They used to collect 450 billion rupees. Now they're collecting in trillions. So that shows growth, that shows taxability, there's a strength from the private sector that we have started to tap. But let's give some value back as well. The private sector needs protection. The private sector needs to be given a full and final liability, discharge of full and final liability in one go. That will ease things up. One window opportunities wherever you are throughout Pakistan. Having said that, if we have a 9.4 trillion rupees collected in tax, we can do much more very easily.
Right. Mr. Saqib, when we talk about increasing the tax base, how crucial a role do you think monitoring of this whole particular system would be in the coming time?
Before saying any specific answer to that, let me be very much focused on that thing, what I was discussing in the previous question about the increasing income of the government. Right now, the government is not putting up any policy or putting up any long-term measures or any political will of how the income is going to be increased. When we were looking for at the budget, there is an increase in the tax net, there is an increase in the volume of the tax collected, but there was not any clarification on how they are going to increase the tax collection by the coming year. And again, squeezing the existing taxpayer is not the solution, but it is happening over the past many years, that the number of people are the same or they are increasing a very little, but the tax rates are very high, and very rightly said, the tax system is very complicated. It's not easily understandable to common Pakistan. Even many of the educated Pakistanis are unable to understand it. They hire the legal counsels to file up their returns. It should be simplified. It should be coming down to a low rates, and more people will be coming into the tax net. The government has the data. The government has to monitor things. FPR has the data. FPR knows how many people are buying the cars, how many people are buying the land, how many people are going abroad for traveling or tourism. So if non-filers are getting the cars, they are buying the land, they are moving out of Pakistan, or they're coming in, they're using the airlines for that. Why they're not paying the taxes? A simple study, a simple research can be made to bring all those people into the tax net. Once they are into the tax net, once the number is increased, the government will get ease. There will be more income in the Pak rupees to the government. The government is relying less on the loans. The government is relying lesser on borrowing or taking money from all the institutes where they are running here and again. So this will eventually improve. Government has to monitor. Government has to put, I can say, a special task force.
So what about digitalization when it comes to better collection and monitoring of the
digitalization is happening right now. We can see the POS installation on the retail sector, but it's going very slow. There are many ambiguities. There are no level playing field. The policy for implementation of the POS systems for the digitalization of the economy is not that much attractive, and it's not that much simplified. Many trader communities have reservations on that. We have expressed our reservations to the finance minister as well, and they are addressed in this budget, and we are thankful to the government for addressing our issues. But we have to be understanding one thing, that Pakistan will continue if we will be economically sound. Pakistan will not continue with the current system we are having, whereby not paying taxes, we cannot be having a good future of Pakistan. So we must come into a tax net. We must be paying some good amount for the taxes and be a part of the economy.
So Mr. Faheem, when we talk about the simplification of this taxation system, where to start from? What key areas do you identify for that matter?
I think that's possibly the toughest question that you've ever asked me in all these years. I'll try to answer that question because I have some experience in taxation. The question is, when you look at a tax form, can a company, can a small SME understand it? It's not that complex once you get into it, but it's not that simple either, because there are many things that contradict each other. There are many things that are difficult to understand, difficult to net off. A very simple question is it deductible? People cannot answer this question. They have turned it into a legal question. It should be completely simple. This is my expense on my personal phone. Is this my expense on my corporate phone? Should be deductible. Simple. So that simplicity starts from when you look at everything from a customer's perspective. It's very simple. You get experts to be customers and let them open an account. Let them become filers and do it yourself without any help. I have to call up the helpline so many times. Imagine the amount of time FBR is spending answering questions. And I really like it when my third question always is escalated to a lawyer. It's very interesting. Then the escalation it always takes me to a lawyer sitting in FBR. So So we need to make it slightly simpler. And for example, if I have to pay 48 taxes if I'm operating throughout Pakistan, the same tax is being replicated in all the provinces, the same tax structure, because we have different revenue boards. I suggested to some tax experts who were with the government that flip the system around. There should be only one taxation payment, and that should be split into the 48 different. If I have to pay 100 rupees tax, I should have to just pay 100 rupees once a month, and that's it. The government can just flip the system around and then break it up as per a percentage. So this is a very simple way of doing it. By the way, we have to give credit to FPR. FPR has been trying very hard. If you look at the other side of FPR, which we don't talk about, which is unfair, we have to be fair, the customs side, they have done a fantastic job. Customs has really built up its systems. So IRS, we're talking about inland revenue. Inland revenue can have discussions with the private sector, what would be simple. And once again, we have to be fair. The FPR did launch a simple taxation system for traders. There are more than 3.5 million small traders in Pakistan. They did launch that system, and it was resisted by the traders. It was a once.
Why was it?
They just don't want to come onto the tax net. It's very simple. If we recall, they had rallies, they had protests. They refused to cooperate. So here, I'll run the numbers one more time. Those 3.5, 3.8 million small taxpayers, small traders, could have given the government at that time $230 billion, rupees. It's an annual payment. It had a 150 and 300 square foot slab. If you're in 150, it's this. You just pay it once a year. No human intervention involved. You just get the certificate and put it in your shop or whatever. You're done. It's done. They refuse to do it. They refuse to pay that tax. So there has to be an enforcement mechanism as well. So when FPR does something positive, first of all, let's appreciate it. Secondly, when they are facing trouble in enforcement, let's try to help them, because everyone should pay tax. So if we had 3.58 million small taxpayers, right now we would have had round about, I think, 7 million taxpayers at the very least. So we need to sort of collect the positives first.
So how could that enforcement mechanism be made more forceful and more efficient?
It's basically to first address their concerns. There are genuine concerns, then there are some slightly exaggerated concerns which are not real, but it's best to sit down with them and talk to them.
Right. Mr. Saqib, how to deal with such traders who refuse to come into the tax base?
Actually,
for whatever the reasons those could be.
What the discussion was happening, I think it's around the fixed tax system that was being introduced by the government last year. And again, that was a very, very good initiative by the government and the FPR, because we highly appreciate, because that fixed tax system is making you go away from all the documentation, from all the audits, from all the going to the legal here, hiring someone for you filing your tax return.
Sorry to add, and also the human interventions.
All the human intervention. But unfortunately, there was a resistance, and we tried our best to convince everyone to come into the tax, because once in a month you just have to pay your tax, and it was through electricity bills. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to open some application. You don't have to visit some bank, or you don't have to visit some office. You just pay in your. But unfortunately, that was being resisted. Unfortunately, the government got under pressure from the business community, and they are the voters for the government. They must be listening to them.
So
that was
what should ideally be done? What sort of a mechanism?
We once
do
again
you suggest, being from the business community, what should be done?
We once again wanted this fixed tax regime to be implemented. What the government has to do, what the FPR has to do, they have to take business community on board. They have to make them understand that this fixed tax system will be beneficial for all of them. Yes, there are some exemptions over there. I came to know of many small shops that they are not even earning some good amount, but they were being taxed at the same rate of some adjacent shop which is doing some business in few 100,000 rupees or whatever. So there are some exceptions there. Other than that, fixed tax system is a good solution. these 3.5 million or the same number or a larger number or bigger, smaller number, this will be get into the TaxNet system, and this will ultimately help government revenue by I think 230 billion Pak rupees as being mentioned. So this is a solution. Once again, the increase in TaxNet, the increase in income, industrialization, exports, these all things are needed attention as the attention and energies were focused on the revival of this IMF program.
You already mentioned that establishment of the Special Investment Facilitation Council is going to play a crucial role when it comes to more investment and in turn increasing the exports.
We are even planning beyond that investment. Rawalpindi Chamber of Commerce Industry has established a specific line for helping the existing investors as well. We will be looking after their complaints, we'll be forwarding their complaints, we'll helping them in facilitating the removal of those issues which they are having. And if you see the model of this investment councils, all the major players of the Pakistan are part of this investment council. So this is giving a confidence to the upcoming investors. This is what was lacking in the previous months, because the investor was unable to decide on which rate of dollar he will gonna invest. Either that investment will be fruitful or not, either the government policy will be changed or not. By creation of this investment council, there is a confidence of the business community, plus there are some friendly countries who are investing in Pakistan in the coming year. We are getting the news from Saudi Arabia, we are getting the news from Qatar, we are getting the news from UAE, China. They all are like investing in huge numbers in Pakistan for the next 50 years or more. So these all positive news, this creation of investment council, the revival of IMF program, the borrowing will increase, the Pakistani economy will settle down, the dollar rate is decreasing, our reliance on many things are getting easy for now. So this investment council will play a very big, a very positive and a fruitful result for the Pakistan.
Right, Mr. Faheem, your understanding of this Special Investment Facilitation Council, especially when we talk about enhancing the exports through indigenous development as well as the investment from the friendly countries.
Yes. The concept is not just to have FDI. The concept is to have FDI which sort of pushes towards the export sectors, and sometimes you can import to export as well. So Pakistan is trying to retool those things, and we've been working on it for quite a while. We've had some bumps along the way, but this is a good opportunity to once again sit down, and the thing is to bring everyone together, get everyone's views. What do they have to say? Because what Pakistan did, what NSD did with the exports thing was we brought everyone together. We spoke to everyone. We identified the exact problems down to the molecular level. We saw the same thing happening in the NCOC. This is like a NCOC for investments. So getting people's views is important, but the target has to be very clear. Are we just focusing on FDI? Yeah, of course. But we're also focusing on FDI which sort of pushes export sectors, because we want a multiplier effect, so to speak. This council is supposed to be streamlining things, making things more sure shot. They're supposed to
sure shot and fast track also.
Absolutely,
Fast
because throughout the world, if you are an investor, you are a privileged individual or corporate. You are given red carpet treatment. It is absolutely it is unimaginable that you would be given a tough time. When you talk about, let's not talk about the big economies, let's talk about Vietnam, let's talk about Burma. If one just becomes interested, one becomes interested in investing in that country, they take you through the path, and they basically make sure that your money comes into their country. But we have to bear one thing.
That's why in this particular revival program there is the establishment of one window operation also.
Yeah,
it's true. To fast track the things.
Fast track, streamline, and to sort of ensure the investor that you just come to this window. You don't have to go anywhere else. Having said that, the details need to be streamlined as well. They need to be combed out, because Pakistan has grown over time, and sometimes with growth your things start to sort of lines start to get crossed, as is with the taxation system. The taxation system structure was, I'm just giving an example, was originally not that complex. With time, it's grown. So you have clauses that contradict each other. There's discretion. So we don't want the same thing happening here. Bottom line, Pakistan needs to make sure that any person who wants to bring a dollar, a rupee, a real, or any other currency into Pakistan, a ruble for that matter, we have to make sure that they do not have to, they don't get into a labyrinth. They just need to come, they need to speak to one window, and that one window should be just telling them, this is the timeline for you, and this is where you sign, full stop.
Right, state-owned enterprises, Mr. Saqib. We have seen the statement coming from the IMF team lead, Mr. Nathan Porter also. One of the things he has also mentioned is improving the state-owned enterprises governance. How to do that? Is the privatization the only solution to?
Well, yes, exactly. I think the privatization is a solution, because we have seen in the past that there are being many efforts put in. But unfortunately, the SOEs who are bearing a lot of loss in billions for the government, they are unable to operate in profit. Where is the problem? Where is the issue? Why it's not getting addressed is something that is beyond our imagination. Like why in our personal capacity, I'm running businesses, they are into profit. You are running some businesses. Everybody's running businesses, they are into profit. But when we talk about the government-owned enterprises, they are not into profit. So privatization is the solution. We have seen many successful privatizations models being followed by our neighboring countries. They are like the investment council will also help in privatization process. So privatize those loss-bearing SOEs and cut down the expenditures and increase your income, or like put Pakistan into some positive figures.
Right, Mr. Faheem, your understanding of this, a quick short comment regarding
I have extensive experience in reviving corporations. So the first thing that needs to be done is you have to have a very clear plan, and then you stick to the plan. You do not deviate from that plan, and you have to have merciless implementation. When a company is making money, everybody's happy. When a company is not making money, that's when the problems really start to show. And when you do not sell profit-making entities, do not sell them, because they're giving you dividends. You have to sell loss-making entities, and you have to sell entities that are a burden on the economy, on the government.
So when you sell such an state-owned organization, what happens to be the prime difficulty in doing that?
Ownership. There's land ownership. There is share-wise. What kind of shares do we? Well, I believe still have problems with the PTC-Aleti Salat transaction. I mean, that's an ancient transaction in corporate terminology, but we still have problems. Is it a category A share or a category B share that we sold? So when people want to buy, let's say, a steel mill in Pakistan, the first question they ask is, will we own the land? If people come into SOEs, special economic, SEZs, apologies, the first question foreigners ask is, will that land be in the company's name? So having said that, the second point that needs to be fixed is liabilities. What kind of liabilities are assumed by the buyer? And if they are assumed, that should technically draw down the price, not draw it up. So there's a bit of a question here and there that needs to be sorted out. But having state-owned enterprises is not wrong. It's just, they just need to be making money for you.
Mr. Faheem Sardar, Senior Policy Specialist at National Security Division, thank you very much for taking time out for views on News Tonight. Really appreciate that. In the studio, we were also joined by Mr. Saqib Rafiq, President, Rawalpindi Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Mr. Saqib, thank you very much for your time also, for being with us on Views on News Tonight. We really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.